Hi, welcome to today's devotional podcast with Dr. Jacob Al. Our devotional topic today is part two of Biblical Principles for Marriage. Part two of Biblical Principles for Marriage, and this is our eighth episode, episode 8. Our text for today is taken from Romans 13 verses 8. Romans 13:8. Owe no one anything but to love one another. Owe no one anything but to love one another. And the second principle that we want to discuss today is don't borrow money. Don't borrow money. Now, it will be surprising that we will be giving newlywed couples this as the second principle of marriage in terms of biblical principles. And for those who may not be in the US, this might not be very much of a problem because borrowing is not part of the culture. But this principle is specifically very applicable to people who are in the U.S. here. In the U.S. here, there's so easy access to money, and for that matter, capital. You have the credit cards, you have personal loans from the banks, you have mortgages, you have car loans. As long as you have a job and you maintain a certain number in your credit score, you can easily get a loan instantaneously. So accessing money through borrowing is not a problem at all in the US. And so because of the easy access to funds and money, people in the US, couple in the US, newlywed couples or to be wedded couples are faced with the temptation of holding on to their elaborate wedding plans when they don't have the budget to meet it. They can easily go and borrow. And to have a wedding is a good enough reason to ask for a personal loan from a bank of even 10,000 and more. And as long as you have a job, you have an income, you easily get it. You can also apply for a credit card and they can easily give you a 20,000 limit. And you can pull all of that and have your dream wedding, so to speak. But what this does is you start your home on a wrong foundation. Now, invariably, most young couples have student loans already to deal with, especially if you have gone to college. Both the groom and the to-be bride will, if they are college graduates, would definitely have student loans, which is already hanging over your neck. And then to start a new home, you make the mistake of going to borrow money to have an elaborate wedding ceremony and even a honeymoon, even though the first principle yesterday, we recommended having a very good honeymoon. We never said borrow to have a good honeymoon. You need to save to have that good honeymoon. If you borrow to go on a cruise for 1 month and you come back to reality and you now have to settle, then you have to be paying this debt. You now become enslaved to the debt. So the second principle is here, uh, owe no one anything but love one another. And that is what the Bible says in Romans 13:8. So it's a biblical principle we are applying to the premarital context. And even this still is good for people who are already married. Do as much as you can to get out of debt so you free yourself of the stress that you need to go through in order to be making these payments every month. Now, if you borrow money before marriage or shortly after that, you should add the new phrase, till death do us part. Till, not till death do us part, but till debt do us part. Because if death doesn't part you both, believe me, debt will certainly part you both. And invariably, statistics have shown that most divorces come as a result of financial stress and financial issues. They have gone in up to their necks on debt, and they are living these flamboyant, flashy lives, driving brand new latest cars, and everybody in the neighborhood thinks they are doing well. It's all on borrowed funds, borrowed glory, so to speak. So when the debtors come chasing them, there's a stress on the marriage. Then very soon, you find that a partner is asking to be given a way out, and so this has been one of the root causes of so many divorces in the U.S. Apart from other issues, finance is one of the leading issues. So if debt does not part you, debt might part you, and so it is a very good thing to be disciplined and not go into debt when you are starting a new family. Not the amount of money, but how it is used causes problems, not how much. In fact, in my counseling experience, I have found that much more conflict among people within a surplus of money than those with limited funds. So this is the funny thing. It is not about the money. I mean, this principle doesn't mean that before you begin your family or before you marry, you should not seek for funds. You should not have funds. In fact, we encourage that. Save enough to have funds enough to be self-sufficient. So it is not necessarily the excuse me, the issue of how much funds you have, but invariably through counseling, I've actually come to realize that the problem is usually even they have enough funds and it's how it is used which becomes the problem. Either that the woman or the bride feels the wife feels the husband is a control freak and is controlling every dime of their money, and the man feels uh, the woman is just running up their credit cards and putting them into debt, and he just can't see top. So it is invariably the way this money is spent that sometimes causes the conflict. When there is no budget, or if even there's a budget, and one partner just doesn't care but keeps spending and spending and spending, then it's bound to bring conflicts in the marriage. So young couples often take on a lot of debt when they buy an expensive automobile or a large house filled with fine furniture. This advice can be rephrased: don't borrow money to purchase depreciating items. Buy only what you can afford buying only what you can afford will make you happier than borrowing money and spending weekends caring for your car or looking for antiques or used furniture. So the fact is this: a lot of the times they tell you that, look, if you buy a new car, immediately you drive out of the dealer's lot or the car dealer's place, a percentage of the value is gone down. It ceases to be a new car, and which is to say that it begins to depreciate immediately. So the advice of most good financial advisors is that don't borrow to buy depreciating assets, because what happens is that at the end of the day, you make a payment with interest, and the value of the asset that you have bought has depreciated so much that you are already in the negative in terms of value or net value at the end of the day. So it's always best, uh, if even you have to borrow to buy assets that appreciate in value. Now, for instance, if you are a young couple and you've been renting and you choose, now your incomes are together, you want to buy a house that you can own a house and move into, and for that matter, you need a mortgage. As long as your incomes will allow you, it makes sense. Because why? Homes values in the US always appreciates. Even if it comes down, as long as you have a long-term plan and you are living in that property, you will never lose. It will appreciate as long as you are able to make the monthly payments, and the mortgage financing that you got was not a cutthroat one. It wasn't what we before the meltdown of the mortgages. It wasn't a subprime loan, in the sense that it had a negative amortization. They were in those periods. There were loans that you didn't have to pay the principal. You only paid a portion of the interest, and so the remainder of the interest was added to the loan. So if even you had the value of the house appreciating, it never caught up with the amount they were adding to your principal. So if you want to start a home and buy a house, just be careful of the rate of interest that you are given on the mortgage. Values of homes appreciate, but you will be in the negative if the type of loan that you are given ends up with what is called negative amortization, which just means that nothing, the principal is not appreciated, it's not going down, rather the principal is going up. So at the end of the day, it exceeds the value of the house. So you are underwater, so to speak. So if even you sell the property at any time, you have to come up with money to pay off the debt. That's not a good thing to do. So when I talk of uh, uh, appreciating values of assets you can buy, and I give the example of a home, you also have to be careful of the type of financing that you get. I will not recommend you to even get an interest-only loan, because the principal will just be stagnant there and you'll be paying only the interest. So at the end of the day, you don't see how much equity you get at the end of the day. Now, your equity is just uh, the existing value of the house minus the amount of the loan. That gives you your equity. That is your money. It belongs to you. Anytime you sell the house, you that is the profit you will get. And obviously, banks are easily willing to borrow you your equity at any time because it belongs to you. So those are the type of investments that young couples should look into if they even want to borrow to buy. So money freedom gives uh, the freedom to use your own money however you choose rather than choices made for you by the money lenders. So uh, there is a couple that young couple that even during their courtship or even after the marriage, they America is so the car dealers will entice you so easily. I mean, it is seamless. Um, they will be on you always to get the latest car because that's how they make their money. Uh, so you have a car and uh, the latest model is out. They are on you. Come and trade in your car and get a new one. And those of you who are not familiar with trading in a car, America, say for instance, right now I have a Honda Pilot that is paid for. There is no year that I don't get uh, letters from Honda telling me to bring in my Honda 2008 model, which is still in good shape and running well, to bring it in and get the latest model with all the latest equipments. It is very tempting. But for me, the fact that it's paid for and I don't have a note on it just makes me satisfied. But they will convince you that, look, bring that car in and we will give you a brand new one. So if you are the type who is eager for new things, you send your car in and then they would probably give you 8 to 5,000, maximum maybe 10,000, and then they give you the latest Honda Pilot, which is probably around 38,000. So you now have a new debt of 28,000 if you minus your trade in value and you start a new payment again every month for maybe another 4 or 6 years. So you never get out of debt. And if you are in America and you are not careful, you find yourself hooked that way. So some couples who are smart would rather each month uh, even if their cars are doing well and running, each month they put aside some money in a savings account if they can, so that by the time the car is run out and giving them issues, they would have saved enough money to just go and pay for a new car without taking a loan. That's a smart way to make it if your finances will allow you. So just be careful because once you are in debt, the money lenders uh, uh, make decisions for you. You are forced to go by their decisions. Uh, Unfortunately, that is the way people have to work crazy here. Work 2, 3, or 4 jobs just to be able to pay the money lenders. And newlywed couples, this can bring so much headache to you. And so please, as much as possible, you want to stay away from debts. Oh, no man except love one another, as Paul says in Romans. So we want to move on to the second principle here, which becomes the third principle, which is Become independent from your in-laws. Leave your father and mother. For this cause shall a man leave his father and his mother, and be joined unto his wife, and they shall become one flesh. Ephesians 5:31. Obviously, that is a quote from Genesis, obviously, chapter 2 as well. So then we have, uh, however, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. So, two comments were given to Adam before sin entered the human race. First, there were no good and evil. First, there were no good and evil trees in the Garden of Eden. So, a person was not to eat of the tree of life. In other words, not to learn evil from experience. Also, in laws were not to be married to the couple. According to God, in laws should not be involved in your marriage based on future causes of marital problems. Genesis 2:24. So this is the thing. Now, in the Garden of Eden, there was the tree of good and evil, and the tree of evil was placed in a way that they were not to touch that, but they had access to the tree of good, which was available for them. But the very tree that they were asked not to touch, that is the one that the enemy enticed them to touch. So, in other words, we should not learn evil from experience. It is not right to learn evil from experience. So, one of the things that uh, the Lord told Adam and Eve, they didn't have parents, but this was even given to Adam and Eve, with God being all knowing, omniscient, knew that generations after Adam and Eve will come and they will have to follow this pattern of marriage. So he said, for this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be cleft together with the wife. Why is it the man who leaves and not the woman? Very often you will think that it's rather the woman who leaves the father and mother to marry the man. But the principle here is unique. It is the man who leaves. Why? Because the man is obviously very connected to the father, especially if he's a firstborn. He will not do anything without consulting the father. Now, he has to leave to start another family as the head. He cannot have a new wife and then still rely on the headship of his father. He has to leave under the headship of his father and start a new home as the head. And so the Bible requires the man to leave the yoke that he's under, not necessarily the yoke, but the headship relationship that he had under his father, and now be a new head of a new family that they are starting. And if you find a man who finds it very difficult to leave the father, but still cleaves on to the father, any little thing the wife does, he runs to the father to complain. Any little decision he wants to take, he runs to the father. That's a recipe for disaster in the marriage. He has refused to take headship and lead his new family. and he's becoming over reliant to the father, or he may leave physically. He may go and rent his own place for you to move in, or build his own house, or buy his own home. But he will still have the father's domination over his home, in the sense that he, as I said earlier, he will consult the father for every decision that he makes. There's nothing wrong about that if you just need different opinions. But again, he will continuously tell the wife, hey, this is not the way my father did it, or this is not the way my mother did it. When you make such comments to your wife, then you are telling her that you haven't left your father and your mother. And this has been the root cause of many marital problems. Some people just want their wives to do it exactly the way their mother did it. And they want to do things exactly the way their fathers did it, even if that goes against the will of their wife. That behavior might be hurting their wife. They don't care. They'll say, that's the way my dad did it. For instance, he spends time watching TV till 12 in the night. And the wife says, no, honey, you need to come to the room earlier than the 12 midnight. You always come when I'm always already asleep. Then you watch your TV, and now you watch certain things, you are jacked up, and now you come and you wake me up from there. You want to have sex with me when I'm sound asleep and I'm no longer in the mood. And what will come out from the husband's mouth is, well, that is the way my father always did it. He watched TV all night, midnight, before he goes home. And my mother never calls. He enters the bedroom and my mother never complains. You don't say that to your newlywed wife, or your wife for that matter. What it means is that you have not left your father and mother. So even though physically you have left their home, you are in your own home, their mentality is what is dominating your life. And that can bring problems to the marriage. You don't always, look, the things that your dad was doing, and it is good and healthy, and you want to emulate that. There's nothing wrong about that. And there's nothing wrong consulting your dad for a second opinion on decisions that you take. But don't always make it obvious to your wife that that is a decision that you have picked up from your father. Don't make it such an obvious thing to your wife that she is not performing like your mother, or her performance in the house is below the standard of your family. This has been a source of problems in a lot of marriages, and it's time for our young couple or even married couple to sit up and understand this scripture. If you continue to do that, then it means that you have not left your father and mother and be cleaved. Now, cleaved to your wife means glued to your wife. It's a matter of using super glue. If you use super glue to bring together two items, there is no way you can separate them and you have their individual properties intact. There will always be problem. You may force to separate them, but one of the other parts will be sticking to the other. That's the same way in marriage. You are glued. When you exchange the vows before God, God has put his super glue to mend you. And he hates divorce. But if for any reason you have to, and you do, just remember that there's a piece of each one of you that goes with the other. And so even before you remarry, you have to make sure you deal with the baggage completely eliminate the previous life before you can remarry. Because that is exactly why statistics too have shown that remarriages don't fare any better in the area of divorce again. So when God says cleave to one another, it means cleave to one another. Cleave to one another in every aspect. Mentally and emotionally, you have to cleave to one another. So don't allow the enemy bring any separation between the two of you when it comes to this area in your marriage. According to the story, the man is told to leave both his father and mother and make a cleave to his wife so that they can never be separated, that they are inseparable. That's what the story in the book of Genesis is telling us about the man. They are to cleave together and they are inseparable. The command to receive from God are to love his wife and cleave to her. Even though the Bible specifies the ideal age for marriage, even though the Bible doesn't specify the ideal age for marriage, the principle established in this is that a man must be able to develop his own home and be totally independent of his parents. Statistically, the best age for a woman to get married is the age of 26, and the best time for a man is age 27 to 31 years. Uh, we will continue with more of these principles in the next episode, so stay tuned. So the Bible doesn't specifically give the specific age that a person can marry, but statistics have shown that at the age of 26, the woman is well matured enough to be independent to live on her own with another man. And for the man at the age of 27 to 31, he is matured enough and responsible enough to take care of a wife and start a family. Now, these are not written, engraved on a stone ages. Each person's time is different, and God's time is the best. And sometimes, when we realize that we are past these ages, the enemy brings confusion in our lives, and then instead of waiting for the will of God and the proper timing of God, we then tend to rush and take anything that comes our way, losing the mark, and our lives become miserable in the marriage that we choose to go into. So I'm encouraging you, when it comes to the issue of marriage, pray about it. Wait upon the Lord. Let the Lord directions be given to you. And for young girls, when you are expectant and you are praying, and any man comes to tell you, the Lord has revealed to me that you are supposed to be my wife, don't let that put you under pressure for you to say, oh, if the Lord has told me I have to marry Kofi, who am I? I have to marry Sam, who am I to refuse? That's a cliche that some wicked men use. God may have never told them anything, but they know the cliches to use in the Christian circles. And then so you, the woman, you are panicky and say, well, this is God who has revealed this to me. No, let me tell you this. When God reveals something, you have the same link to God. And you have access to him to speak to you just as him. So when the Lord speaks to him, and he comes to tell you, it would either be a confirmation that you already have sense in your spirit, or if you don't sense anything, you haven't heard anything from God about this person, Just thank the person and say, well, thank you. I'll pray about it for God to give me the confirmation. Because God is not a God of confusion. When Mary told Joseph that this thing that I'm carrying is of the Lord, Mary didn't have to convince Joseph. Even Joseph uh, doubted it and was planning to do away with her secretly. The angel of the Lord visited him and gave him a dream. So you can seek confirmation from God. You are a believer, you are a child of God. Don't jump into it and buy those cheap uh, uh, proposals that these men bring to you when you haven't waited enough on the Lord to be sure that He's actually the person God is giving you. And so, even as parents, I pray my children are young, and some, even though one of them is of the marriage age, I haven't ceased praying for the wife that God has prepared for them. We take this for granted as parents, but we have to know that our kids' wives can make or destroy them, especially in the area of their faith. So be praying for the spouses of your children, even as young as they are. Remind God to prepare the right persons for them. Thank you for taking time to listen to today's devotional podcast. Just remember this: Christ in you is the hope of glory. And if you are young or you are already married and there's trouble in your marriage, these two principles are maybe the area that you are suffering. Invite Christ into your marriage, invite Christ into your life, and He will help you both partners to see eye to eye and set this in order to heal your marriage. If you are young couples and you are desiring God's will for a perfect marriage and you don't know Christ, it is important that you know Christ, because Christ in your marriage makes all the difference. You can pray with me. My Lord and Savior Jesus, thank you for your word today. I commit my life into your hands. Come into my heart. Cleanse me of my sins with your blood. I confess you as Lord unto my salvation, and I believe your finished work on the cross of Calvary for my sins and to my righteousness. And I ask you to turn a new leaf in my life and make me what you want me to be. Heal my marriage. Bless the union that we are planning to get into. In your precious name I pray. Amen. Beloved, thank you so much for taking time to listen to today's devotional podcast. If you are listening to this podcast on our YouTube site, I encourage you to put comments below, and also remember to subscribe. On the left-hand corner, there is a red and white button. Click on it. It will open up a promotional banner, and then you can listen to it. And after that, you have the opportunity to click on the subscribe button to subscribe to this channel. And anytime a new podcast is uploaded, you will get an alert, and you will never miss any of our episodes. Now, I encourage you to find a Bible-believing, Christ-centered church to attend. Let them know you have received Christ so they can come around you and help you grow in the things of God. Now, if you live in the Spotsylvania, Fredericksburg area, once again tonight we have our prayer time. We are still in the 21 days of fasting. Last Wednesday was powerful. This Sunday is going to be powerful as well. The Spirit of the Lord will visit us. I invite you to come. It's between 7 to 8:30. And I encourage you to come and bring along with you friends. Any prayer need that you have, come and we'll be praying with you on that. Now, I encourage you, if you have listened to this podcast on any of our 15 podcast stations, please put it in the comment section and let us know you have received Christ. And if you need any materials to grow in discipleship, we'll be willing to send you some material so you can grow in the things of God. Thank you so much for taking time to listen to today's devotional podcast. God bless.